Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you the top 10 Ark non-negotiable creatures. You must have them. Let's get into it. In at number 10 we've got the Theory, and in my opinion this is just the fiber gatherer which all of you need. And yes, it can gather loads of berries as well, and it is extremely useful for that. I really do need to put it on the list for the fiber gathering, as it is something which, you know, some other creatures don't really have, and only it and the moss chops really do wield well. Obviously the Mantis can use sickles to get fiber as well, but as a general gathering creature the Mantis can't gather fiber just right off the bat without any tools, where the Theory and the moss chops can, and I'll kind of interchangeably put them here, but I prefer the Theory as it is a lot more versatile in my opinion than the moss chops. So you know, that's why I would say the Theory is the non-negotiable creature here, as, come on, it can do a heck of a lot. It is great for the dragon boss fight because obviously that fire damage is not going to be nice to carnivores, and it does a heck of a lot of damage and it isn't a carnivore, so that fight can be done much more easily with a creature like this. On top of that, again, they can gather fiber, they can gather thatch, they can gather wood, they can gather berries, and generally they're just great traveling mounts around the map too. Next up we've got the Uranus, and I really love this creature as a general carnivore, and I'm not actually putting the Rex on this list, as I find the creature in at number 1 can pretty much do everything for me without the need of a Rex, but a UT is still a very nice thing to have, and in my opinion a non-negotiable Ark creature when it does come to boss fights. This thing's courage raw ability is just so good, you simply must try it for yourself if you haven't already, and I'm sure most of you have. It is kind of just the standard thing to do, really. Get that UT for obviously its courage raw. It does very well in that aspect, and I love it for all of its ability from that. On top of that, it does have the fear raw as well, so you can fear some creatures away. Not really a thing that you should use in boss fights, because the boss usually is not affected by this, and by that I mean all bosses aren't affected by this courage raw, at least to my knowledge. And it would make sense because the boss being scared of you, that doesn't usually sound like a thing that would make for good game design, would it? Also on top of that though, they are generally great carnivores to have around the map as well, and I really do love them for that too. So yeah, that's why the UT's here. Decided to put the Stego here, as I find it is the best berry gatherer out there really for me. It is small, easy to tame, and it just gathers a lot of berries. You might say a Bronto or a Diplo or a Parasaur or a Trike are your go-to, and you are allowed to say that, but for me the Stego is always the creature that I will go for all of my berry gathering needs, and maybe then I'll get a Bronto or something if I really want to increase my volume massively, but I don't really need tons and tons of berries, and this gathers a very healthy amount of berries for what I need them for. Like, you can literally look at its inventory there briefly, it has tons and tons of berries on it already, and it barely takes any time whatsoever. So yes, it is really good at that, and it's just really easy to tame actually. Like, you don't need a trap, you're much faster than Stego, as long as you can just kind of keep running away from it and keep tranking it out, you know, you're going to have a good time. More applicable in ASE because you could level up movement speed of your characters, and on stuff now mostly you can't do that anymore in ASA, but you still can if you want to, you know, if you enable that on your own servers or single player worlds, and I would definitely recommend that because I am very pro speed leveling in Ark. I just think it sort of adds to the game. Yeah, it can get a little bit mental, but Ark's a little bit of a mental game, isn't it? In number 7 we've got the Stalker, and this is my all-time favourite underwater mount. No matter what map I'm playing on, I will always go over and get myself a Stalker, unless it's obviously a server that I'm playing on that isn't a cluster server, which is never really, because I don't play servers that aren't cluster servers because I want access to the Stalker. It's also a reason why I've kind of been holding back on ASA a little bit, because this creature's not here. But Scorched Earth is still very much fine because there's not really any water to traverse on that map. But for the island, I really found it a struggle not to have this creature in, to the point where I just simply spawned one in and started using it because, you know, that's just, I'm addicted to this thing essentially for underwater travel. It is so fast, snappy, it can glide on top of the water as well. On top of that, this thing is just generally a great traveling mount as well, so you can use it inside and outside of the water. It doesn't have to be one or the other, because you do find that with some underwater creatures, you know, they don't go on land. It kind of is in the name, but if you have a creature that is amazing at underwater travel and can also go on the land as well, really well and effectively, you're going to be having a good time. And with a creature like this, you really are going to be having a good time, and I urge you, if you haven't already, get yourself a Bloodstalker. And if you're playing ASA, if you feel like it, maybe spawn one in, because you might want to try one out. Otherwise, just wait until Gen 1 comes out. Next up, I've decided to put on the Shadowman, because this creature is just so jam-packed full of abilities. It deserves to be on the list, doesn't it? This creature is fast, agile, very quick, all kind of synonyms of each other, and it can go invisible as well when there's a presence of a male and a female, and I can't remember which one it goes invisible on. I think it's still all of them, but you know, there's something to get around that. I don't really use that ability. The main thing that I do use these things for is they're insane at traveling, like I've said before. Just look at how high this thing can actually jump. It's a little bit absurd when you think about it, really. Like, come on. That is it's a lot of jumping capability, which maybe you wouldn't expect from a creature like the Shadowman, but once you use one, you really do expect it out of this. And it's also a really great underwater mount as well, and my second favourite underwater mount out there. Obviously, Bloodstalker being my favourite, but it still can do very well in this environment, and it has the hydration buff too, which is something the Bloodstalker lacks. In number 5, I decided to put the Desmodus, as, come on, this creature really does fit the bill when it comes to non-negotiable Ark Tames nowadays. This is obviously a creature which spawns on Fielder, so for you ASA people, you're going to be waiting a while, but for us ASE people, still hanging on to the game that we all know and love, you're going to be using this creature a lot, and I'm sure of it. The Sanguine Elixir is an absolute cheat for Tames. 30% of it's just done like that with the click of a button. It is just such an absurd ability to think about if maybe we went a couple of years back, but now it's just a normal part of our lives, and we just make the Sanguine Elixirs and we just get Tames done so much faster and just so much more effectively. On top of that, they can gather blood bags as well, so for my favourite underwater mount, I can just make a blood bag farm with Desmodus, and then boom, I can tame loads of really high level Desmoduses and Bloodstalkers too, of course. They do have the gliding ability as well, so they can get around the map pretty fast as well, and they can go invisible at the night too, but I chose the wrong biome for this, so it didn't quite work out. The Bionics is the epitome of caving mounts, in my opinion, and it really cannot be beaten by anything at this point, because it spawns on the island. It has been in our hearts for so long, and we've been using this thing for so long, at least I have been, and it has cemented itself as the creature to go for. It is so accessible, very easy to tame as well. On ASA, the spawning is bugged too, so it spawns in any river biome, so you don't even need to go to the swamp biome to get it, but there's a lot of spawn bugs all across ASA, so it's to be expected really. On ASE though, and generally on ASA, maybe look in the swamp biome first if you can't find anywhere. Otherwise, maybe just look along some beaches and something like that, and you'll be sure to find some. They're not really particularly rare creatures whatsoever, which definitely does play to their favour, because they are insanely great mounts, and I really do implore you, if you haven't already, to get yourself a Bionics and start using this thing, because it really is a dream. They also can do a spin attack underwater. They can't do this above water if you're wondering, and it stuns creatures up to the size of a Megalodon, which is pretty good for making it a contender for underwater caving. The reason for this is obviously it's got a great size, it's a great swimmer, it deals enough damage, and it has a good amount of health too. Same going for normal caves. In number 3, we've got the Argentavis, and this really is one of those creatures where I'm like, I just need an Argy, unless I'm on Gen 1 or Aberration, because flyers are not simply allowed on the map. But when it comes to gathering up loads of metal, or realistically traveling around with it, because you're not going to be gathering with this creature, it is just your go-to. The weight reduction it has on metal, crystal and obsidian is absolutely insane. I think it's 50%, and on top of that, its weight is great too, and you can level it up and get it really ridiculously high in a lot of cases. Its stamina is very high too, so you can fly for a long amount of time without needing to take breaks like you would on something like a Pteranodon. On top of this, their saddle does act as a smithy too, so as long as you have some metal ingots on it, if maybe you've done some caving or something like that and your flat gear is broken because an Raasclark may have just broken that very kindly for you, then you can always just repair it up in the RG and not go all the way back to your base to repair it, because I like to do a lot of caves in one go. Like, I'll do 3 at a time, especially for the brood mother, because they're all on land, and I just get all of those done before going back to base, and my armor will probably break in between because of Raasclark, but it depends how we go with the Barry. And this, you can also carry the Barry as well, so you can get that tag team going. On top of that, if you do have an Anki or a Dodic, you can just farm any kind of resource like metal, stone, flint, etc. They also have a regen buff too. If you kill something and eat it, the health will heal pretty quick. In number 2, we have got the Mwing, and this is the best travel mount out there when it comes to non-negotiable creatures. I can't even say it properly anymore. For me, it really does come down to a lot of travelling, as I do a lot of travelling around the map in my Ark playing, and the Mwing is just so great for that. If I've got some soul traps, because realistically I don't use cryopods, I use the soul traps mod because it's so much better than cryopods, and I love that mod to death. Install it if you haven't already. Not sure if it's on ASA or not, but it's definitely on ASE, and honestly, it will really change your playing when you get using that mod. But you have the Barry in the soul trap, and then just glide around the map with this thing. Yes, the RG is the great kind of vanilla solution to all of this, but you can still use a cryopod actually if you want with this thing. And obviously the RG does spawn on the island, so if you do transfers, but still, once you get it on the map, it is just so worth it. And also just on any map really, because it can be used on any map, because it's not actually a fly, it's a glider, making it insane for traveling around every single map out there. It is just the best travel mount. It's so fast. It acts as a portable feeding trough too. It can gather berries, and it's not a terrible swimmer too. It's probably actually my 3rd favourite underwater tame, which maybe you expected, maybe not. And in number 1 is the Deinonychus. When it comes to non-negotiable Ark Tames, finally said it right, the Deinonychus is always the one where I just simply need one, and this is the biggest nag I have with ASA at the moment. Valguero is still not out, and it probably won't be for a while. I can't remember what the timeline is for it, but it's going to be a little bit is all I know. But obviously in ASE, these things are everywhere because Valguero exists, so you can actually tame and use these things. Again, I've really just spawned one in on ASA and started using them because they're just lovely things to use, and they can deal bleed damage to bosses too, which really does add to them as a boss creature. That's why I haven't put something like the Rex on the list, because this does everything the Rex does tend to do for me, just better. It also has the pack buff too, so when you bring loads of these things on and around into the boss fight, you're going to be buffed on top of this too. If you bring a Yeti on top of that as well, you can have a courage roll, although commonly I don't really bring a Yeti into boss fights when I'm using the Deinonychus, because I'm usually riding one and getting that bleed ability in, because that tends to be a lot more effective. They also do take no fall damage whatsoever and are insanely fast mounts, and you really can get a lot done in terms of travelling. Again, something which I really like from a creature. They can also scale up any kind of wall or vertical surface. You're going to have no issues with that whatsoever. Kind of like what the Rock Drake would do, but not quite as extravagant, as it obviously can't go vertically. But, you know, the Rock Drake is sort of a different beast, but still doesn't make the non-negotiable list for me. But anyway, that is the end of today's video. I really hope that you all did enjoy this one, as I definitely did enjoy making it. Comment down below, what is the non-negotiable Ark Tame for you? And if you didn't agree with this list, then always put your 10 in the comments below, and I'll see you all later.